Accountable management. Our congregation has excellent, flexible, I want you to key on that word real quick, flexible management systems, teams, committees, councils, boards that empower the future direction of our congregation rather than seeking to control the future direction. Decision-making is open and responsive to congregational input. The management systems are supportive of the visionary leadership. I love that statement. How many of our churches embody that statement? How many of your new churches embody that statement? Yeah, they don't, because you don't have management systems yet. You don't know what management systems are yet. You're still kind of trying to figure it out. You're still dealing with
the Presbyterian. Boy, that could fit them real well.
Except, it does fit them real well. And this is, it does. I mean, management is, it's an essential part of what we do. And it's something that kind of grows over time. And it really, you don't hit your height in management, accountable management, until you probably reach, probably 8 to 10 years in. So it takes a while to get there. But, as we'll talk about here in a little bit, that there's a danger. Management is dangerous. It poses a great danger to the church. Because what tends to grow over time are these. These tend to grow over time. If you've been a part of churches before, not necessarily a new church, but I bet if you track a congregation's progress every 10 years, if you track it, that they've increased the number of policy-making committees, policies they have, the stuff that the management just kind of mushrooms over time. And if you're not careful, it can overtake a lot in the church and become very controlling. I'm sure we can all share wonderful war stories about, finance treasurers that wouldn't let us do ministry because they didn't think it was appropriate for us to do. I don't know how many times we're going to go out and do this great program or go develop relationships, and the treasurer said, no, we're not going to do that because he didn't think it was a wise use of our money. Well, wait a minute, who's in charge here? What's driving the church? And so we have to look at that. And so some of the key elements in management, we're managing resources, a lot of the financial kinds of things, how we govern ourselves. Obviously, our polity is a big player in our churches. How many of you are chartered? We got one in here. Oh, thank God the rest of you don't have to follow the book of order. Amen. That's if there's one reason not to charter, it's that if you don't charter, you don't have to follow the book of order. And so the polity of the church. Well, I love the polity of the church. Huh?
You're being
Hey, that's fine. That's okay. I've said that before. I mean, there's no reason to charter any sooner than you have to. I know you're presbyteries, and I chaired our new church development committee in Grace Presbytery. So I am a presbyter and I'm a GA person now. So, and I would tell churches, you don't charter until you have to, until you absolutely feel like you're ready to. Sometimes presbyteries want churches to charter because it gets them off the book, kind of, and they don't have to worry about them as much. But there's so much more you have to deal with when you charter, because then if you talk about the full force of the management system coming down on you, it comes down on you when you charter, because then you have to grow up and act like a real church. You have to start following all the rules. You have to start going. Well, you're probably already going to presbytery, but then any issues you have to deal with COM. I mean, it's just amazing. So I'm a fan of putting off chartering. I mean, as long as you can.
Within systems and structures, is that possible? I mean, is that?
I mean, every we have 173 different ways of starting churches and managing churches and chartering churches and doing that. I mean, there's no one systemic issue. I mean, there's nothing. It's not like if you go from Redwoods and on the West Coast to Detroit on the East Coast, they're doing it completely different ways. And we get calls all the time saying, well, how do you do this? And nobody really knows. We all kind of make it up as we go, and which is kind of a scary thing. We all kind of feel our way through it. There's probably, I would say, and I'm going to, without a lot of knowledge, I would say you're probably got about 10 to 15% of your presbyteries that know how to do it and do a good job.
Exactly. Sometimes they don't do it.
And that's pretty. And those kind of statistics, 20%. What's the old adage? 20% of the people in your congregation do 80% of the work. I mean, so you usually have about 20% in your congregation that get it. They're either a part of the pastoral leadership, they're people of passion, or they're part of the leadership team. You usually have about 20% of your congregation that get it. And that's pretty constant in the Presbyterian church too. You probably have about 20% of the churches that get it. You probably have about 20% of the presbyteries that get it. And those 20% of the churches and presbyteries and people in your church will determine the future course of your church. One of the things that George said, and this is kind of off the beaten path, it wasn't part of this presentation today, but he said there is a constant gap between the top 20% and the rest of the 80%. And so often when we want to try to improve the church, we try to get the other 80% involved and try to work with them. He said, what you need to do is raise the level of the 20%. So as you bring them up, the rest of the people will come. And so a lot of times when we're trying to do transformation, we try to work with that 80%, try to get them energized and get them involved, but it really does nothing to improve the vision and the transformation of the church. So one of the things that we look at from a denominational standpoint is what are the presbyteries that are doing it? Where are the churches that have got it? And really invest in that 20%, hoping that if we increase their productivity and they start more churches and they start transforming, that the rest of the church will kind of tip and follow. It's kind of an intriguing kind of thing. But that's something you need to be thinking about within your own church. Who are the people of passion? Who are your 20% that you need to invest your time in? You should be investing 80% of your time into the 20% of the people that are passionate about the church. That's where you need to be spending your time as pastors. Questions? That's kind of uncomfortable because that's not, that's not what we were kind of taught, right? So it's a bit of a shift for most of us. If we spend more time with those who lack the passion, will that create passion for them? Any examples? Has that ever worked?
The 20%.
I mean,
spend time with the 80%.
Exactly. As you spend time with that 20% and they're passionate, they bring the others along. I mean, it's held constant. I mean, and we've been spending time with the 80% for years and years and years and years, and they're still not passionate.
Coming
You
back
know, I
to
mean,
This morning, who is Jesus? That's the model he used anyway. He spent time with the 12.
yeah, he spent time with the 12.
That's where his focus is.
And he was very clear when he sent his disciples out. He said, if they don't respond, what do?
Leave.
You shake the dust off and keep on going. The problem is we ride into our churches and our presbyteries with Messiah mentalities, like we're going to be able to save everybody, and we can't. First of all, we save no one. That's not our role. But we run in with that Messiah mentality, thinking we can save everybody, and we can make those 80% passionate, and it's kind of like if you follow the Strength Finder stuff with Gallup. There's a lot of research now that you invest in what you're strong at versus what you're weak. You invest with your strong, and that's where you invest the majority of your time. You get more gain when you take what you're strong at and make that stronger than you do taking what you're weak at, trying to make that stronger. And there's some great, we can look those up and I can get those to you. Some great, there was a study done with readers, kids who were, with the kind of, on what reading level they were at. And they took a group that were really high above their grade level readers, and they took kind of average readers that were struggling. And they sent them through that Evelyn Wood speed reading thing. And the ones that, I'm trying to remember the exact numbers, the ones who were the average readers increased like, 30-40%, saw a pretty good increase. The ones who were really good readers increased like 500% or something. I mean, it was just this exponential increase by investing in what they were good at and what they were strong at. They really picked it up and took off. Whereas the other ones improved, but that wasn't their strength, and so they saw less improvement. So by investing in where your strengths are, you have a greater ability to lift the congregation. Remember we talked about the concept of the air going over the wing and lifting up the airplane? That's that kind of thing. When you lift up the top 20%, it lifts the whole church up. So to effectively bring those 80% up, you've got to work with the 20% and invest in those people of passion. Questions? All right. I mean, this other slide was just basically talking about the issues in the generative dialogue management, bucks, butts, buildings, boards, all that stuff. You can call them the 3 or 4 Bs or the ABCs, attendance, building, contributions. Those tend to be management questions, which is probably why it's so frustrating for us a lot of times.